March 15th, 44 BCE. The streets of Rome stir before dawn. In the heart of the city, the Senate gathers in the shadow of the theatre of Pompey. A dictator is expected. Julius Caesar, conqueror of Gaul, reformer of the Republic, and the most powerful man Rome has ever seen, prepares to attend what will be, for him, a routine session of state. But not everyone wants him to arrive alive. A conspiracy has taken root. 60 senators, men with daggers hidden beneath their togas, wait to strike, not for the Republic, but to protect their power. And they succeed. Caesar is stabbed 23 times. The great general falls beneath a statue of Pompey, his rival in life, his final witness in death. Rome plunges into chaos, but what if it didn't? What if Caesar had stayed home? What if he'd listened to the omens, to his wife Calpurnia's dream? What if a frightened servant had spoken out and Caesar lived? What if the knife never fell? This is the story of a Rome that never became an empire by accident, but by the will of one man. This is the world where Julius Caesar survived the Ides of March. The omens were everywhere. A soothsayer had warned him, "Beware the Ides of March." His wife, Calpurnia, begged him not to go. In her dream, Caesar's body bled in the Forum while Romans washed their hands in it. In our world, he dismissed those warnings. But in this one, he listens. That morning, Caesar wakes before dawn, restless. Outside, a storm brews over Rome. Calpurnia pleads once more. Then, a knock. A trusted household servant, terrified and pale, arrives with a secret. He's overheard whispers, seen glances, caught wind of something terrible being planned in the Senate. Caesar hesitates. Then he decides. He will not go. Instead, he sends word that he is unwell and remains in his villa on the Palatine Hill. The conspirators gather, knives hidden, waiting, but Caesar never arrives. They panic, and then they scatter. Within days, the plot unravels. Caesar's informants, now emboldened, begin naming names. One conspirator is arrested on the road to Cumae. Another is captured while trying to flee across the Tiber. Caesar strikes fast. Within 2 weeks, over 20 senators are executed or exiled. Brutus, Cassius, Decimus, all gone. The Republicans, as they called themselves, silenced. The Senate is purged. The streets are quiet. Rome is still. But it is not peace. It is the calm before a new kind of storm, not one of chaos, but of control, of consolidation. Caesar has survived, and now he will never again let the Republic risk his life or his power. This is not the Rome of Cicero. This is the beginning of the Julian State. Rome has seen assassinations before. It has seen civil wars. It has even seen dictators. But it has never seen anything quite like this. The failed assassination of Julius Caesar in 44 BCE doesn't just reshape Roman politics. It obliterates the very foundation of the old republic. When the conspiracy collapses, Caesar doesn't respond with measured forgiveness or magnanimity. He responds like the general he has always been, swift, precise, and merciless. What follows in the weeks after the Ides of March is what later historians call the Caesarian purge. At first, it is quiet. Brutus is captured near Antium, betrayed by a local landlord eager to win Caesar's favor. He is brought back to Rome, tried in a closed court, and publicly executed on the Capitoline Hill, a symbolic inversion of the republic he claimed to defend. Cassius flees towards Syria, hoping to rally troops, but the eastern governors, already loyal to Caesar after his previous campaigns, refuse him aid. He is arrested by Roman agents near Ephesus and dies by forced suicide, a subtle echo of what would have happened had the plot succeeded. Cicero, who was not directly involved but was deeply sympathetic to the conspirators, flees to Brundisium and then to Greece. Caesar declares him a fugitive and seizes his property. Statues of Cicero are torn down across the Forum. Over the course of 3 months, more than 24 senators are arrested, executed, or exiled. Many others, seeing the writing on the wall, publicly declare loyalty to Caesar or quietly retire from public life. Caesar then does something unprecedented. Rather than fill the vacant Senate seats with patricians, he opens the door to a new political class, Provincial nobles from Gaul, Spain, and even the East, men who had never held traditional senatorial bloodlines, are granted Roman citizenship and fast-tracked into political office. To some, this is blasphemy. To others, genius. It is the death of the Roman Republic and the birth of the Julian State. And the Senate still exists, technically. It still meets in its great marble chamber. It still debates, still votes. But now every senator knows they sit there at Caesar's pleasure. They are no longer lawmakers. They are advisors, administrators, carefully chosen ornaments for Caesar's rule. In 43 BCE, Caesar formalizes this reality with a sweeping new legal decree, the Lex Imperium Juliani. Its language is framed in the old republican style, citing emergency conditions, restoration of civic order, and temporary measures. But the effects are anything but temporary. The law grants Caesar permanent military command over all provinces and legions, tribunician powers for life, giving him legal immunity and the ability to propose legislation directly to the people. Control over all elections, with the power to veto any result contrary to the state's stability. And most radically, the right to name a successor to inherit his powers. It is not called a monarchy. It is not even called an empire. But Rome now has a permanent ruler. Caesar retains his title of Dictator Perpetuo, dictator in perpetuity, but shrewdly avoids the word rex, king. That word still stings Roman pride. And yet, the reality is clear. Caesar is king in all but name. To the people of Rome, this new order brings something they haven't had in years: stability. After decades of civil war, Marius and Sulla, Pompey and Caesar, bloodshed in the forum and in the streets, the people are tired, exhausted, ready for a peace guaranteed by force. Caesar delivers. He expands the grain dole, slashes debts, begins ambitious new public works projects, including roads stretching into northern Gaul and aqueducts, feeding water deep into Italy's interior. He sets up a new civil bureaucracy based on military efficiency and opens offices to equites and provincial elites. The Roman government begins to shift from a patchwork of aristocratic privileges to something more imperial. In 42 BCE, he creates a new body, the Concilium Populi Caesaris, the Council of the Caesar's people. It is a hand-picked assembly designed to echo the old tribal assemblies, but stripped of their chaos and unpredictability. Loyal citizens from Italy, Gaul, Hispania, and Africa sit together, many of them veterans who fought with Caesar in the Gallic Wars. They are consulted on legislation, but never allowed to initiate it. Their votes are recorded, but they do not bind Caesar. Still, symbolism is powerful. Rome is no longer ruled by Romans alone. Meanwhile, Caesar's public image undergoes a transformation. In the Forum, a new temple rises, the Temple of Divus Julius, not to honor a dead god, but to prepare the way for a living one. Though he never claims divinity outright, Caesar allows, even encourages, the worship of his genius, his divine spirit. Temples to Divus Julius appear in Gaul and the East. Provincial priests begin including his name in their oaths of loyalty. A new Roman religion is being born, one centered not just on Jupiter and Mars, but on the living embodiment of Roman order, Caesar himself. And behind all this, one question begins to loom large. Who comes after him? Caesar is now in his late 50s, still sharp, still commanding, but aware of his mortality. With his line of succession now enshrined in law, attention turns to his chosen heir, Gaius Octavius, his grandnephew. Octavius is still young, still untested, but Caesar begins grooming him, giving him command in Hispania, surrounding him with experienced generals like Agrippa, and slowly introducing him to the machinery of government. Some, like Mark Antony, begin to worry. Others, in Rome and across the provinces, begin to hope. The Republic is dead, but the bloodshed has ended, at least for now. In its place stands something new, something strange, not a kingdom, not quite an empire, but a world where one man and one name holds it all together. Julius Caesar has survived the Ides of March, and now, Rome belongs to him. With Rome secured and the Republic's final embers extinguished, Caesar turns his gaze east, to a reckoning decades in the making. In 53 BCE, the Roman general Crassus led 7 legions into Parthia and lost nearly all of them at Carrhae. The humiliation still burns in Roman memory. Standards were captured. Roman prisoners were paraded like spoils. Now, Caesar wants them back, not just for vengeance, but for legacy. At 61, most men would be writing memoirs, not marching across deserts. But Julius Caesar is not most men. In 40 BCE, he departs Rome with 12 legions, a mix of hardened veterans and eager provincials, bound for Syria. The Senate, now a compliant instrument of his will, grants him unlimited campaign powers. Mark Antony is named Magister Urbis, master of the city in Caesar's absence. But no one doubts who rules. The campaign moves quickly. Rather than launching a direct assault into the Parthian heartland, Caesar pursues a subtler strategy, first securing Armenia, whose mountain passes offer a back door into Parthian territory. King Artavasdes of Armenia, caught between 2 giants, bows to Roman pressure and becomes a client king under Roman protection. Caesar leaves 2 legions to reinforce Armenian defences, a quiet message to Parthia. Rome is coming back. Skirmishes along the Euphrates follow. The Parthians, still fractured by internal dynastic disputes, are unable to mount a unified resistance. Caesar doesn't aim for total conquest, not yet, but pushes far enough into Mesopotamia to reclaim the lost standards of Carrhae and several key Roman prisoners still alive after 13 years in captivity. The propaganda victory is immense. In 39 BCE, Caesar returns to Antioch in triumph. Statues of him are raised not only in Syria and Judea, but in Alexandria, Pergamum, and even Babylon. Places that once viewed Rome with suspicion now hail Caesar as the restorer of Roman glory. Back in Rome, however, tensions simmer. Mark Antony, left to oversee the city, has never been content as second in command. A brilliant general in his own right, he had expected to be Caesar's natural heir. Instead, Caesar has placed his trust and his name in the hands of a quieter figure, Gaius Octavius. Barely in his 20s, Octavius spends these years in Hispania and Gaul, learning the mechanics of empire, supply lines, taxation, provincial diplomacy. Caesar has assigned him the best teachers, the finest staff, and perhaps most importantly, a rising young general named Marcus Agrippa, who becomes both Octavius's strategist and his shadow. By 38 BCE, Octavius is known in public as Caesar Filius, Caesar's son. The name is more than symbolic. Caesar has formally adopted him and begun positioning him for the future. Statues now show the two together, the elder Caesar, laurel-crowned and divine, and the younger Octavius, solemn and watchful. In the streets of Rome and the forums of Gaul, whispers begin, when the old Caesar dies, the new one is ready. Antony, meanwhile, grows increasingly isolated. Once a key lieutenant, he finds himself excluded from key decisions. Caesar sends envoys to Egypt and Judea without consulting him. The governorship of Africa, long a reward for Antony's allies, is given to a Spanish-born equess with no senatorial pedigree. Antony begins to suspect that the Republic may be dead, but palace politics are very much alive. And in the east, Caesar is still building. In 38 BCE, Caesar announces the formation of a new eastern province, Armenia Inferior, under direct Roman administration. It is a bold move, a clear warning to Parthia, and a sign that Caesar does not merely intend to restore Rome's past borders. He is redrawing the map. In the same year, he returns to Rome for the first time in nearly 2 years. His arrival is orchestrated like the return of a god. Golden chariots, laurel garlands, animal sacrifices, a full month of games in his honor, the Temple of Divus. Julius is completed and consecrated. Caesar does not attend the ceremony himself. Instead, he watches from a shaded balcony as priests burn incense to his divine spirit. He says nothing. He doesn't need to. The message is clear. Rome has become something new. Its armies are no longer purely Italian, its elite is no longer purely Roman, and its destiny is no longer tied to the old traditions of Mos Maiorum, the customs of the ancestors. It is now defined by one man's will, but even the strongest man cannot escape time. Though vigorous and commanding, Caesar is aging. His hands tremble after long rides. He speaks less in Senate sessions and more through envoys. Behind closed doors, he begins discussing succession, not as a matter of theory, but of planning. Octavius is summoned back to Rome. Antony is summoned as well. In the coming years, they will face each other more directly, but for now they kneel before the man who holds the world together. Julius Caesar, general, dictator, God in the making, has survived the daggers of the Senate, only to face the slow, inevitable dagger of time. By 37 BCE, Julius Caesar is no longer simply a man, he is an institution. His image is carved into marble across 3 continents. His name, Caesar, has become synonymous with power itself, and his shadow looms so large that even the sunlit streets of Rome feel shaped by his will. But the man behind the myth is mortal. He walks slower now. His eyes sometimes drift mid-sentence. A wound from Gaul, long ignored, flares with pain on cold mornings. He speaks with Agrippa more often than with senators. His appearances in public grow rarer and more symbolic. And so, the question that had once whispered across back alleys and palace courtyards now echoes aloud in Rome's marble halls. What happens when Caesar dies? But there is no precedent for this. There is no plan. But the one Caesar himself has written. His heir is clear. Gaius Octavius, now styled Octavianus Caesar, is named in law, honoured in ceremony, and given increasing command over the army and state. He speaks in the forum. He negotiates with kings. He delivers Caesar's messages, and increasingly his orders. Caesar no longer prepares him for power. He begins ceding it. But there is another shadow, Mark Antony. Once Caesar's right hand, Antony is still popular with the legions, especially in the east. He still commands loyalty, still commands fear, and increasingly resentment. Antony had expected to rule beside Caesar, but Caesar has made it clear, there is no beside, there is only after, and only one man will inherit the world. That man is not Antony. In 36 BCE, Caesar makes his final military appearance, a tour through Illyricum and northern Macedonia, reviewing legions, confirming treaties, and opening new Roman colonies. His body is frailer now, but his presence still electrifies cities. In Thessalonica, he's greeted with chants in Greek, Soter, Saviour. In Dyrrachium, Theos, God. Caesar allows the honours, but says nothing. He knows the truth. He has become what the Republic feared most, a monarch in all but name. And now he prepares to pass that monarchy on. And that winter, Caesar returns to Rome for the last time. In 35 BCE, he hosts a grand festival, the Ludi Juliani, games in honour of his family, his reign, and his gods. Over 10,000 animals are sacrificed. Gladiators from across the empire compete before roaring crowds. In the centre of it all, seated atop a golden platform, is Caesar himself, robed in Tyrian purple, a crown of laurel on his head, holding a sceptre of ivory. He says little. He smiles rarely. But the people know what they're seeing. This is not a celebration of Rome's power. This is a farewell. In the months that follow, Caesar begins the quiet transfer of power. He forms a new office, Praefectus Imperii, the prefect of the empire, and names Octavian to fill it. It is not quite a co-rulership, but it is close. Octavian now controls the treasury, oversees the provinces, and commands half of the Praetorian Guard. Agrippa is named commander of the city's defences. A network of administrators loyal to the younger Caesar begins replacing older appointees. The regime is being rebuilt from within, not for today, but for the day after. Then, on the 17th of Quintilis, 34 BCE, the month that will soon bear his name, Julius Caesar dies quietly in his sleep at his villa near Lavinium. No dagger, no betrayal, no crowd of senators, just silence. The man who outlived Sulla, Marius, Pompey, Crassus, and the blades of the Ides finally yields to time. Rome weeps. His funeral stretches for 3 days. A golden effigy is burned in the Forum. His body is placed in the newly consecrated Mausoleum Julium, the first great imperial tomb. The Senate votes him full divine honours, Divus Julius. Temples are rededicated, oaths are rewritten. Priests of the Julian cult, once considered fanatics, now lead official ceremonies. Across the empire, altars blaze with sacrifices in Caesar's name. And above all this, above the mourning and the ritual, rises a single question: what now? Octavian steps forward. He claims his inheritance not just by law, but by performance. In his first speech, he promises continuity, stability, order. But no one misses the change in tone. Octavian is not his great-uncle. He is colder, sharper, less theatrical, more surgical. He does not conquer with charisma, but with calculation. Mark Antony, still in the east, sends messages of loyalty. But no one believes it will last. The stage is set for a new rivalry, one the old Caesar will never see. And yet, his influence will define it. Because now, for the first time in Roman history, the succession is not determined by Senate vote or civil war, but by inheritance. The Republic is truly gone. In its place, a dynasty is born, and the name that begins it all is Caesar.